America's train system under intense scrutiny following that horrendous derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. The Environmental Protection Agency has ordered Norfolk Southern to pay for the cleanup. This after toxic chemicals were released following the train wreck. Federal experts say nationwide train derailments are actually not uncommon, but rarely involve hazardous materials. We took a look at derailments here in Michigan. Now, according to the Federal Railroad Administration, from 2003 to November of 2022, there were 412 derailments, 103 of them in Wayne County alone. 7 Action News reporter Whitney Burney is going in depth tonight. She has a look at how rail lines are regulated, and she's checking in with families in Van Buren Township following last week's train derailment there.
As people in a Van Buren Township neighborhood await answers.
It was concerning because you don't know what's going on. And I think still they haven't really said why the train derailed.
Anticipation builds.
The morning of the derailment, all we heard was the sirens, and then about maybe 15-20 minutes after the sirens, then we heard a helicopter going over the house.
This comes after first responders say 30 Norfolk Southern train cars derailed last Thursday. This is the rail line where those 30 cars went off the tracks last week. This way, there are several businesses lining the tracks, and on the other side, there are homes and neighborhoods just nearby. While the cars that tipped over were carrying grains, investigators say there was a car that contained liquid chlorine. Luckily, that hazardous material did not spill. The derailment marking the second time within a year that a train went off the tracks here in Metro Detroit. Back in the fall, a train with cars carrying chlorine and hydrochloric acid derailed near Warren.
They're typical freight cars that run through there. This is the atypical situation with only one hazardous materials car. Usually there's a lot more on the trains that run through.
Fire Chief David McAnally says train derailments don't happen often, but crews prepare for it with hazmat training. Neighbors say when news of the Van Buren Township derailment broke, chemical spills were top of mind, especially as the nation has been watching a train derailment unfold in East Palestine, Ohio, just weeks earlier. A hazardous waste spill there now suspected to be the cause of health and environmental impacts to neighbors and nearby wildlife.
I feel bad for those people, and you don't know what could make you sick if something busted open down there.
We reached out to MDOT and the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy to see if either entity regulates what kinds of materials travel via our rail lines, but both referred us to the Federal Railroad Administration. And the FRA says there's no system in place to track what's coming down the rail lines in real time, but railroad companies will provide that information upon request. The FRA says they do, however, track safety data and incident reports.
It's scary because you don't know what's on these trains.
As neighbors continue to pray the worst never becomes their reality, first responders say they're still awaiting the results of the investigation.
I think having some faith in the system that not every situation is the same, and that your municipality is ready to handle something like that.
In Van Buren Township, Whitney Burney, 7 Action News.
All right, thank you, Whitney.